For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started. All right, looks like we are live tonight on SFT. We've got an exciting debate here for you guys tonight. I am pumped. We're debating the topic of naturalistic origins versus biblical creation. And I've got, he goes by Boy here with me. So this is going to be, I'm looking forward to this. So Boy, thanks for being here. And you are muted right now, my good man. But since this is your first time on the channel, and you were saying in the pre-show that you're looking forward to more debates in the future, why don't you say a few things, I guess, in terms of introduction, what your position is, who you are, plans for the future, so on and so forth, just so the audience can get to know who you are, kind of like, let's break the ice kind of thing. So, Boy, thanks for being here. Oh, I think you're muted, Boy. Here, let me... Okay, you're good to go. You're good to go.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for having me again. Yeah, I'm Boy. I go by Boy because I'm just kind of a boy in search of the truth, kind of like everyone else. So yeah, that's kind of my short story. I really enjoy debates, so that's one of the ways that I am reaching my truth. That's one of the ways that I'm exploring myself, and that's one of the funnest things in the world to do. So yeah, I like debates. I make music as well. I also do audio engineering, and I'm a Hyperian, which brings me to my position today. My position is that one of which is pure logic and reason, and I'll go ahead and make the argument today that biblical creation is illogical, and yeah, I think you guys will like my presentation.
All right, thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So it looks like we've already got 30 people in the chat, guys. So we've also got, I'm going to bring him in just for a second. We've got Praise himself here as moderator, just to make sure things are going smoothly. And we are maintaining, especially in the discussion portion, maintaining an equally timed discussion for the most part. And, also timing the opening statements and the rebuttal rounds, because roughly it's going to be easy going, but roughly we've got 12 to 13 minute openings, 6-minute rebuttals. For the rebuttal rounds, we'll have to be strict. So Praise will give us a 1 minute warning and then a 10-second warning just so we can wrap up our points, followed by a roughly 45-minute discussion, brief closings, 3 to 5 minutes, and then a bit of a Q&A from the audience. So make sure you're tagging Praise. He'll be the one taking the questions because I'll be too focused on the debate itself. So anyways, that's the format. And I think we agreed. You want me to go first, Boy?
Yes, indeed. Let's hear it.
All right. Here we go. So Praise just ran away for now, but he'll jump in when he is needed in terms of timer. So, let me put a timer on real quick too, just so I can follow along. And alrighty, here we go. Okay, I'm going to share screen. Praise, start my audio when I'll give you a heads up. Okay. All good. You can see the slides there, Boy?
Okay. Yep. They just popped up.
All righty. Perfect. Okay, let's get into this. I'm going to start the timer now. And okay, well, I'm Standing for Truth. Obviously, this is my channel. I've written numerous books as well as co-authored numerous books on kind of this topic, biblical creation, independent origins, limited ancestry versus universal common ancestry. So definitely check those out for more information on that topic. So today we're discussing naturalistic origins versus biblical origins. Obviously, I'm defending biblical origins tonight, so let's get right into it. Now, the naturalist, I want to point out, the naturalist requires the evolution of a simple self-reproducing cell, okay, before they can even begin discussing, the so-called evidence for evolution and universal common ancestry, okay? If all the athletes, or let's say all the runners, happen to die at the starting line of a race, well, there's not going to be a race to discuss. Actually, boy, if you could maybe mute yourself just for the opening, just to I
Yeah,
hear a
no
little bit of
worries.
background noise, and no problem. I'll do the same for you. Okay, so I want to point this out as well. This is important because there exists chicken and egg problem after chicken and egg problem when it comes to first life. Okay, the RNA World Hypothesis is an absolute failure. This is a hilarious paper here titled The RNA World Hypothesis, the worst theory of the early evolution of life, except for all the others, because they're all equally bad and equally void of evidence. Life coming from a primordial soup is a failure given the fact that water actually drives reactions, okay? Drives reactions necessary for the origin of life in the wrong direction. Carbohydrate first hypothesis is a joke, been completely overturned. Let's look at one example before we move on. Take the amazingly complex information storage system of living organisms. Even the most simple of living cells, take the mycoplasma, for example. This has 500 letters of DNA information. These letters, this information codes for proteins. But the problem for the naturalist arises when you cannot decode the information in DNA unless you have highly complex decoding machinery. DNA codes for its own coding machinery, okay? DNA literally has the instructions to build its own coding machinery. This is just one of the many chicken and egg problems. Tell me, naturalist, which came first? The machinery, okay? But how do you get the machinery without the instructions? Or did the instructions come first? But wait a minute. You cannot read those instructions unless you have the machinery to read it. Okay, you need everything working together right from the start. Otherwise, life would not and could not exist in the first place. This is just one of the many unsolvable chicken and egg problems naturalists face with all types of origin of life hypotheses. Take RNA. RNA is more unstable than DNA. In our cells, there are about 1 million DNA breaks every single day. And most of these are fixed by the amazing, intricate repair systems in the cell. But if RNA is less stable than DNA, and DNA requires many amazing DNA repair enzymes in order to survive over time, how on earth can an RNA world even be remotely plausible? Anyways, guys, I could spend the next 10 hours on all the major problems associated with abiogenesis and naturalistic origins, but for sake of time, I'm going to move on. I simply recommend everybody check out the interviews and large number of discussions I've had with numerous PhDs, including PhD chemists who have studied this in great detail. You can find this on my channel, and they point out just how utterly impossible abiogenesis is. Okay, so moving on, with the absolute failure of abiogenesis then, okay, what do we conclude about origins? I'm here to tell you that the design diversity hypothesis best explains the data. This hypothesis also leads to testable predictions that I am happy to discuss with Boy here today about. Before I get to that, though, I want to first really quickly cover the lines of evidence that are agnostic to this debate, okay? Naturalists who hold to universal common ancestry may look to homology, right? Those shared structures. You can see this on the slide. Those shared structures observed in the biological world. Or possibly those rare so-called transitional forms, such as Tiktaalik here, or the mammal-like reptiles, or maybe Archaeopteryx, okay, as in those types of animals that appear to blend the features of different varieties of animals. Those that reject biblical creation, which I am here to defend today, and I'm an evidentialist, so I'm going to be going over the number of lines of evidence that support my position. Now, the critics of this position may also look to the nested hierarchical patterns, right? Those groups within groups patterns that exist in the biological world. Okay, for example, the fact that humans are more similar to the chimpanzees than they are to monkeys, and humans, chimpanzees, or monkeys are all more similar to each other than they are to, say, a fish or a banana plant. Evolutionists, okay, and naturalists who hold to evolution would say that this is the structure of life. That fact that we can classify and categorize creatures in these groups within groups patterns. They say this indicates descent with modification and a naturalistic origins for the biodiversity of life. Critics of biblical creation have also looked to vestigial organs, junk DNA, pseudogenes, chromosome 2 fusion, and ERVs, for example, as evidence against independent origins. Okay, well, let's get right into this then. When it comes to homology, for example, human designers build in homologous patterns. We also see homologous patterns at the blueprint level. Oftentimes, the earliest stages of different types of modes of transportation, let's say sedans, SUVs, and vans, all look very similar. And it is not until the final product that we see the most differences. Humans also build vehicles that seem to blend the features of multiple types of vehicles. Okay, one such vehicle that comes to mind, which you can see on the screen here, is an amphibious assault vehicle, which happens to blend the features of both a land vehicle and a vehicle built for the sea. This is all good design. This is great design, and it is also good forward thinking. Human engineers also build in nested hierarchical patterns, okay? These types of groups within groups patterns are found everywhere in the design world. In other words, we find an echo, a literal echo of the overall pattern of life in the design world. We can see hierarchical patterns at the visible level and the blueprint level. Okay, and I also want to point out the fact that we understand so little about the DNA language, okay? We are learning so much more every single day. Okay, the created heterozygosity and front-loaded DNA diversity starting point has incredible and irrefutable explanatory power. Okay, so I'm going to skip up a couple slides here. Even when it comes to transitional forms, I mean, here we go. Fencing pliers, the perfect transitional form according to naturalistic evolutionists. You know, it's designed. It's got a multi-purpose design, incorporates a staple puller, fencing wire cutter, fencing wire crimper, a general purpose hammer. So the question is, you know, where do you put it? Because a lot of this is lining things up according to preconceived ideas and notions. Vestigial organs completely overturned. What they thought was functionless turns out to be incredibly important function-wise. Evolutionists have had to actually redefine vestigial structure just to force fit the data. We were talking about nested patterns, for example. Well, tons of inconsistencies that we can talk about. Convergent evolution, which every time convergent evolution is invoked, the naturalistic evolutionist is admitting to an inconsistency in the phylogenetic tree. A platypus, I think God specifically created the platypus just to show how stupid evolution really is. Okay, so let's get right to this then. So I was talking about the explanatory power when it comes to design diversity. For one, it would not be difficult to generate all the numerous species we see today in the world simply by invoking design diversity, especially since what we see is rapid adaptation and rapid evolution. This is not the type of change that took a fish to fisherman, okay? No, this is the type of change that can only be explained through a forward thinker. The changes we see all arise through the pre-existing capacity for adaptation. Consider epigenetics for a second. So we have our genes, which make physical parts of our cells, while epigenetics is what controls how the genes make the physical parts of our cells, right? Our epigenome literally turns genes on and off as compared to changing the actual genetic code itself. And there's paper upon paper upon paper about this. Okay, our genes, I want to point out, our genes are not all turned on at the exact same time. This would not be good. This would be detrimental, actually. These are non-random changes that we are seeing. Okay, rapid evolution in real time. Good design means we have some type of control, a type of control, okay, that we see in epigenetics that makes sure we have the right things being turned on and the right things being turned off. This is all forward thinker, which points us back to the forward.
1 minute, if you can conclude, sum up your statements, go ahead, SFT.
Praise. I've got just over 10 minutes on my clock. So maybe you. Yeah, I still got a couple minutes.
Ahead,
so I'm looking at my timer. I'll let you know when I'm done.
Go ahead.
I think you started a little bit early. Okay, so as you can see here, though, human evolution has been completely overturned. Paper after paper, article after article. Okay, and we can touch on a number of this and a number of these lines of evidence during the discussion if you'd like. Okay. The design diversity hypothesis Naturalists make a lot of assumptions. Right here, we can get into the predictions coming from the design diversity hypothesis. Okay, the design diversity position would predict that most of our genome and most of the DNA elements found within the genome, including pseudogenes, okay, we've got paper after paper here on pseudogenes, ERVs, ALUs, and other types of variation-inducing genetic elements would be highly functional and active, okay? And this is exactly what we find. Once again, paper after paper. I mean, I could go through these all day long, okay? And even the chromosome 2 fusion, the so-called fusion, I'm going to pull up a little bit. We got orphan genes, taxonomically restricted genes that point to an independent origins model and creation. We can discuss that right here. So even the so-called chromosome 2 fusion has been overturned. I'm at 11 minutes and 40 seconds, so I'll be done here in about 1 minute. Chromosome 2 fusion, we can always discuss if he holds to that. Also, genetic entropy. You know, we've also got this major unsolvable problem of mutation accumulation and genetic degeneration. Okay, mutations are accumulating far too quickly for natural selection to filter out the damage. What type of selection can Boy here today invoke that will counterbalance the accumulating damage? Because genetic entropy points us right back to the fall and points us right back to a perfect creation that has descended into degeneration and extinction. Number of papers here. And the last thing I'll say too is, according to our model, I'm going to wrap it up here. God tells us in Genesis he created 2 people, okay, Adam and Eve. And this makes some very specific predictions and retrodictions based on genetics. For example, starting from just 2 people, we would expect what's called low genetic diversity. And it turns out we have low variation in the mitochondrial DNA, the Y chromosome, okay, the nuclear DNA, and citation after citation showing exactly what we would expect based on the biblical model. We can get into phylogenetics and the pattern in both the Y chromosome and the mitochondrial DNA, the exact pattern that we would expect if biblical creation were true. Okay, these trees are not a reflection of 100,000 years or more, or thousands of generations. It's only a reflection of a couple hundred generations. Okay, what we see in terms of genetics is exactly what we would expect if biblical creation were true. We can make retrodictions and predictions, and all of this did not have to be true, and yet it has turned out to be true. So I will yield there. And
so I got 13, 17. My thing beeped early, so that's my fault. So SFT, you could take off a couple seconds for that because I paused it. So Boy, if you want to have extra time, we'll allow that. And
Okay.
yeah, I'll start your time here and make sure the beeper's gone. I apologize for that.
No worries. Can you guys see my screen?
No worries. Yeah, here we go. And take as much time as you need, Boy. Like I said, I took over a little bit over 13 minutes, so take equal time or even a little more if you need it. So go ahead.
Okay, no worries. All right, cool. So we're here to debate naturalistic origins versus biblical creation. What I am trying to figure out here is, how can a faith-based system give the best account for our origins? If your whole argument standing for truth is logically fallacious, meaning it's a God of the gaps fallacy and relies on faith instead of reason, then is it actually strong evidence? Young Earthers say that things written in the Bible have similar characteristics with the Big Bang. Thus, a Christian God made the universe. Intelligent Design says this world appears to have been made by someone intelligent. Thus, a Christian God made everything. A Christian God has specific attributes. It's loving. It has plans for you. It sends you to hell or heaven. You cannot make a specific claim about ontology, which is the nature of being, if you cannot explain how these processes work or even could work. If your whole argument is based in, so this genetic code looks like a code, thus a Christian God. Well, that is not logical. That is strictly faith, and faith-based systems are, again, like illogical and empiricism, which is like Standing for Truth's entire YouTube career, does not give the best argument, since empirical physicists will openly admit they don't understand what fundamental particles are made of. So if Standing for Truth's whole argument is based in observation, then that's not going to be a logical account of the true nature of existence. You wouldn't, in other situations, this would be totally negligent. If we were in Afghanistan during the war, you would not, and you were not a bomb specialist, you would not make a claim saying that bomb won't explode. If you cannot tell me how this process works of God creating the world, then you are just making a logical fallacy. Early philosophers understood this. Hempel's dilemma says ideal physics, if physicalism refers to current physics, it's false, as this physics is clearly incomplete. If physicalism refers to ideal physics, it is irrational, as ideal physics is unknown. Standing for Truth's argument also doesn't hold up to the principle of sufficient reason. And for those of you that don't know, the principle of sufficient reason is, simply put, no fact could ever be true unless there were a sufficient reason why it was. I challenge Standing for Truth today to give a sufficient reason for why the origins of existence have to be a Christian God. Hyperians have a specific way that we interpret this principle of sufficient reason, and that is, simply put, why is it such and no other way? What account for existence is valid by the principle of sufficient reason? Well, we have to go back a little bit to give you a logical foundation for this. Idealism is the philosophy that there is only mind. Matter is an illusion that is reducible to mind. Rene Descartes, philosopher and mathematician, says, suppose that I am dreaming and that these particulars, that my eyes are open, that I am moving my head and stretching my hands out, are not true. Perhaps indeed I do not even have such hands or such a body at all. Erich Schrödinger, pioneer of quantum physics, says consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. I'm going to mess up this dude's name. Peter Stoch, who's a philosopher, also said the brain does not produce the mind. To assume that the mind is caused by the brain due to psychophysical correlation is to commit the fallacy cum hoc ergo propter hoc, which translates to English as because event A happened, B is true. It's logically fallacious. Quantum mechanics tells us that everything is a wave. The entire body of physics developed before quantum mechanics is called classical physics. Before they used to think that, there were particles and waves, until in 1987, the dude's son who found that out, proved him wrong, and announced that electrons exhibited diffraction, and so were also just waves. So what does that mean? There is only math and mind. And so the best logical argument is going to be one that shows how that is true, and that is ontological mathematics. What is ontological mathematics? Ontological mathematics is the study of the mathematical wave nature of existence. It's the study of these fundamental waves that make up literally everything. Thoughts are mathematical sinusoidal waves, so thoughts are these waves. Thinking is what creates the physical world. So ontological mathematics is the study of mathematical waveforms of the mind that make up all existence and your very being. Ontological mathematics uses deductive instead of inductive sound arguments to prove specific claims about the nature of existence, meaning all claims are necessarily true. They must exist. They must be true. Can 1 + 1 = 78? No. 1 + 1 = 2 because it has to equal 2. It is implied. Rejecting ontological mathematics is rejecting logic and reason itself. To give you a further explanation of deduction versus induction, an example, deductive arguments try to prove their conclusions with rigorous, inescapable logic. Example 1, all humans are mortal. Socrates is human, therefore Socrates is mortal. Inductive arguments try to show that their conclusions are plausible, likely, or probable, which you can just think of as standing for truth's whole argument. It works on a scale of probability, but it is never making a claim, can be sure, it is not making a claim of true or false. Written purely logically, a deductive argument is written as such. All A are B, C is A, therefore C is B. So the best argument is going to be one that logically uses a deductive argument to prove things about the nature of existence. And that brings me to the best argument, which is the mathematical, I haven't used PowerPoint in like forever, so bear with me. Which brings me to the best argument, which is the pure mathematical way to express where we came from. This is called the source formula. It can be the like dumbed down version of it is like over here on the left, 0 equals positive infinity plus negative infinity. And the whole picture here, Euler's formula, is on the right. And what makes this equation the best argument? Because it logically explains and has all of the attributes of a God and the universe. 0 is eternal, uncaused, and created. Everything that is required for before the Big Bang, or understanding before the Big Bang. It also explains logically how the physical world can be generated, not created. Mike Hockney from the God equation says, calculus more than anything else reveals reality to us. If understood correctly, as it was by Leibniz, it reveals the truth that idealism and not materialism is reality. Haven't used PowerPoint in a while. Calculus is showing us that we have to embrace 0 and infinity. As Descartes pointed out, the domain of non-extension of zero dimensionality is the domain of thinking substance of mind. Leibniz grasped that calculus was showing that reality was grounded in dimensionless mathematical points, which were none other than Cartesian minds. So this logically makes a deductive argument proving that we are eternal, that we are eternal minds. And you can see the equation visualized this way. Think of Conway's Game of Life. Intelligent designers say that a Christian God, a conscious God, must have made the universe. But the Game of Life, also simply known as life, is a cellular automation devised by the British mathematician John Horton Conway in 1970. It is a zero-player game, meaning that if evolution is determined by its initial state, requiring no further input. So one of the arguments that I see a lot is that, because everything looks structured, it looks like it has an intelligent design, that means a Christian God exists. We can see from Conway's Game of Life that if you just set simple rules and you put it in motion, that you can get small little structures at first, and then they start to develop. And then after billions of years, you can get what we see today as the complex world with all the intricacies that it has. And it's completely, there's no consciousness needed for this to happen, just a set of rules and motion. So this completely destroys the intelligent design argument. The physical world is created by these waves through what's called a Fourier transform. In mathematics, a Fourier transform is a mathematical transform that decomposes functions depending on space.
You got about a minute left, but go ahead, and if you need more time, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely need more time. But you can think of a Fourier transform as us dreaming. When we're dreaming, we're going off of our own frequency patterns. There's nothing to stop us from being able to fly, or there's nothing to stop us from being able to do whatever we want. We're working with our own personal frequencies. And you can think of the world that we are experiencing right now together as a collective dream, a collective consciousness, a collective Fourier transfer. Different eternal beings adding their frequencies together to create a complex wave that gives rise to the space-time continuum. So this obliterates monotheism. This proves that we are a bunch of eternal minds currently creating the world. It's a collaborative, collective dream. You could think of the Fourier transform as a hologram. You could think of a laser shooting onto a beam, and then creating the space-time domain that we have right now. It's not that something's being created, it's coming from 13. Its own nature.
All right, so no worries. Maybe you can wrap this up, yeah.
You can also think of it like this. We are thinking beings, and we are creating the physical world, the person here that is experiencing the world. You can think of us as this dimensionless mathematical frequency pattern that is creating the physical world.
10 seconds.
So I'll go ahead and skip here to the end here. So what does this mean? Ontological mathematics' major takeaways have implications that are in direct conflict with biblical creation. Since biblical creation does not even attempt to tell you how God works, and ontological mathematics does, it becomes the best logical argument. The cosmological argument only says that for the universe to have begun, something must have caused it, and whatever that must be eternal, necessary, and uncaused. And mathematical mind fits the bill perfectly. Since God and the universe is actually zero, or Euler's formula, that source formula that I showed you guys earlier, and has none of, and the concept of zero, or these eternal minds, has none of the additional specific attributes that Christians claim, then Christianity must be false. The intelligent design argument only proves that this world is structured in a rational way. Ontological mathematics proves that the physical world was generated from its own nature. But if the physical world was generated from its own nature instead of created, then a Christian God does not exist, since the Bible claims that God created the world. The material world was not consciously created, it was unconsciously mathematically generated, similar to how your mind generates a dream, as stated before. According to the principle of sufficient reason, there is nothing that stops polytheism from being possible. This would debunk biblical creation as well, since Christians claim that there is only one God. And then with that, I yield my time.
Yeah, you're about 14 and a half minutes, but I'm sure SFT was fine with that, because he's a boss, so.
Hey, I'm pretty easy going, no problem.
Let me see. How do I get the fuck out of it? Right.
There, awesome. Okay, so praise. We got 6-minute rebuttals, and I probably couldn't type fast enough as to everything you're saying, so I'm going to address as many things as I can. So start the timer in 1 second. Okay, start it now. I'm going to do the timer too, 6 minutes. So let me rebut a few things that Boy said in his opening first, okay? For one, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. So he said a lot there. That was a mouthful. Now, for one, I don't hold to the Big Bang. The Big Bang has massive problems, okay? One that comes to mind is the horizon problem, a major, major problem, unsolvable, okay, and has only been defended through rescue device after rescue device, okay? Also, I am not holding to a God of the gaps position, since for one, okay, abiogenesis has no evidence whatsoever, and this is based on real empirical science, okay? Actually, Boy, can you mute yourself again? Just so there's no background noise. Okay. So, yeah, abiogenesis has no evidence whatsoever. Okay, chicken and egg problem after chicken and egg problem, as I went over in my opening. This is based on real empirical science. This is not an argument from ignorance. Okay, numerous PhDs agree that abiogenesis has absolutely no evidence supporting it. Also, the law of causality, okay, actually supports creation, supports biblical creation. God is immaterial, and therefore idealism supports the Bible. Boy just spent 14 and a half minutes confirming my position, not negating it. Now, I am an evidentialist, and I provided massive amounts of evidence from the biblical starting point. And I am going to press Boy in the discussion portion on those lines of evidence directly from science. And we'll see if he can deal with those. Now, I will also say this, okay? Based on his DNA code claim, DNA is undoubtedly a code, okay? And DNA points us to the designer, he who created the code. This is why I provided numerous predictions, numerous retrodictions based on this starting point of front-loaded capacity for adaptation and change, okay? Evolutionists argue that biological information is nothing but organic chemistry. It's not real information. But here's the thing. This would be like saying an encyclopedia has no real information, okay? It would be like saying that is just paper and ink. Or let's say we can look at a computer. The naturalist or the evolutionist would say, a computer doesn't contain any real specified information. It's just electricity that's flowing through circuits. No. Regardless of the medium, information is information, okay? And the God of the Bible is a personal God, okay, who chose to create, okay? So this absolutely demolishes any of these deist positions, okay? I also start from the Bible. Specifically, the account of Genesis is where I look to, which essentially claims to be the history book of the universe. The Bible makes incredibly specific claims about human origins. For example, okay, God tells us he created two people, Adam and Eve. We can make very specific predictions and retrodictions based on this starting point. For example, genetics is the best way to determine ancestry and to actually answer this question of origins that we're here today to discuss. Is there genetic evidence that we have all really started from just two people thousands of years ago, as the Bible claims? It turns out that yes, modern scientific data has confirmed this, okay? So I'll demonstrate this a little bit more for my last 2 minutes here, but also a large number of overwhelming lines of evidence, okay, that confirms biblical creation, because the Bible, okay, claims that Adam and Eve, man and woman, were created, specially created, independently from all other life forms. Okay, so we can also test this to the scientific data, and I'd love to see if Boy could address any of the lines of evidence pertaining to, let's say, the massive differences between humans and our so-called closest cousins. I mean, we can discuss human-specific genes, we can discuss differential gene expression, unique transcription factors, the amazing functions not predicted by evolutionists contained in non-coding DNA. We can look to the FOXP2 gene, signs and lines, genomic networks, long non-coding RNA, DNA sequences. Okay, so I'm going to screen share real quick for the last minute of my rebuttal here. A lot of your religious texts, they make specific claims that we can absolutely dismantle, okay, just by looking to modern scientific data. But the Bible, on the other hand, has been confirmed. Okay, the Bible, the very first passage of the Bible says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. For a long time, people believed in the steady state theory, that the universe was eternal. It's always been. Okay, not till recently has there been kind of unanimous agreement that the universe had to have come into existence. The Bible has always predicted this. God, that is the who, he brought forth time, space, and matter. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, okay? And once again, we can take the data that we have from science, okay, and we can show a reflection of it in these phylogenetic trees. And it just so turns out that the Bible's claims about human history, okay, are true. And the naturalist needs to address that. And my time is up. So thank you so much. That's 6 minutes.
You're under 6 minutes, SFT, so good job. You're welcome when you want to start, boy. I'll start the timer for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen again. So yeah, what I keep hearing from SFT. Hold on, let me share my. Can you guys see my screen again? Oh, fuck. Go back to my PowerPoint here. So yeah, can you guys hear me?
Hello? Yeah. You're fine.
We're
let us know
on
your first word. We'll start the timer.
Okay, so yeah, so what I keep hearing from my opponent is the empirical data. All of the empirical data shows that biblical creation is the best account. And I'm trying to get through my opponent's head that I'm trying to disqualify all of the empirical evidence that he has, because that is not. Empirical evidence isn't ontology, right? It's not necessarily logical. Again, empiricism makes where is it here? Empiricism makes inductive arguments. It's based on observation. Since these things happened in the past, this is the model that we're creating. But again, my argument and my position is different from one that is on a scale of probability. This equation right here is a deductive argument, meaning it proves things about the existence of nature using reason and logic. And what I keep hearing from my opponent is deductive arguments that make a God necessary, but I'm challenging my opponent to make a deductive argument that proves a Christian God exists. So again, I don't necessarily really care what the empirical evidence says, because that is not the best way to account for that's not the best way to explain how something works. Again, the best way to know something or show that something is true is to explain how it works. What biblical creationists attempt to do is let's do like a mental let's do a logic experiment. Like, say we both know that a car exists. What Christians do is attempt to brand the name of the car without understanding how any of the engines work and how any of the things work under the hood. So you cannot make a specific claim about something without telling me, oh, okay, well then how did a Christian God create the world? I mean, you're telling me all this empirical evidence, but that's not based in ontology. So yeah. I'll challenge my opponent to make a deductive argument that proves the Christian God is the best explanation for our origins. And yeah, I'll yield my time there.
So you had, let's see here. Oh yeah, you had over 3 minutes, man. So yeah, you're a great job. I guess this will be a free-flowing crosstalk with you guys, a open discussion. So is SFT. I'm sure he's ready to go with that.
Okay, let me stop. Sorry,
yeah, I'll start it off since you just ended there. So, I mean, I feel like maybe everything I said in my opening went over your head, boy. And I'm sorry if that sounds aggressive, but this is a debate, and I'm here to dismantle your position because you didn't even attempt to touch on the overwhelming lines of evidence that confirms my position of not just creation, but biblical creation. Now, ontology that you talk about is the branch of philosophy that studies concepts such as existence, being, becoming, and reality, okay? But the best explanation then, okay, for our existence is through, my position, is through creation. But this was not just any creator. This was the God of the Bible. Okay, no religious text. And I want to make this clear. No religious text, and I challenge you to present me one if you disagree, other than the Bible, specifically Genesis, has been so absolutely and amazingly consistent in terms of human origins, okay? And that's what we're here to discuss is origins from a biblical perspective. If a valid argument has true premises, okay, because you want me to provide an argument through deduction, then
Correct.
the argument is said also to be sound. And what I'm saying is the arguments that I'm presenting based on evidence, based on empirical observations are sound. And unfortunately, I didn't, and I'll
That's not how
yield in 1
logic
second.
works. No, that's an inductive argument. Again, if you're using empirical data to make an argument, you can that works on a scale of probability. It's either weak evidence or strong evidence. My deductive argument that I'm making is either true or false. It's an on-off button. So again, I challenge you to make a deductive argument that proves a Christian God exists. I hear from your camp a deductive argument that it makes just a general God necessary, and that I gel with because that is is proven by the deductive argument. But again, if you're using your whole YouTube channel is an empirical analysis, and then you correlate that to a Christian God existing, and again, that is logically fallacious. I don't know how you guys don't understand that, but that is not a position based on reason at all. That's based on our senses, which we know are flawed. So yeah, again, I implore you to make a deductive argument that
Well, let me ask you a question.
A Christian God exists.
Is existence ontological?
Yeah, I would say existence is ontological. Like I would say, yeah, I said that our the nature of our being has existence.
So from your position, are you more of a deist? Do you believe in a personal God? What is your explanation for what is your best explanation for our existence? Are you
Yeah, so again, and this may be a little bit hard for people to understand at first because you need to go through what's called a paradigm shift. We need to start taking away the empirical data and start inserting mathematics and deductive arguments instead, because these are actually proved claims. But yeah, so I'll go and share my screen again. So what I was trying to portray there by showing the math is that I'm so bad at sharing the screen.
You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I mean by this is the best argument is this proves this is a big deductive argument, and it proves certain attributes, or it has all of the certain specific attributes that allow existence to arise. It's all valid by what's called the principle of sufficient reason. All of the math in here is proven and is as such that you cannot show that it can be another way. Which is why reason is so important. This is like how we understand this kind of stuff. So yeah, my perspective says that we are nothing. We are this mathematical point that is.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, boy, just before I'm trying to write down everything you're saying, including the things that you said in your opening statement. Would the transcendental argument for God, would that be a deductive argument for the existence of at least a designer? The fact that the laws of logic are grounded where? In God's mind, right? These laws of logic are what? Spaceless, timeless, immaterial. Does this necessarily bring us to the biblical God? Well, we can discuss that, but would that be a deductive argument for the existence of a God? Would that meet your requirement?
And again, I reiterate, like again, like your guys' camp like makes a lot of deductive arguments that shows a general God exists. But then I have watched so many of your guys' debates, and none of you guys have ever made a deductive argument that proves a Christian God exists. And that just only shows that this idea of God is being watered down by humans, and that if we just embrace this math, we can actually understand God in a logical way.
Okay, would you agree that the evidence suggests a God, a designer, a creator?
It suggests something eternal, uncaused, and
First God.
and there's one other thing. But I'm drawing my.
Okay, well, let me say this. Let me say this then. Okay, if you're not going to have any disagreement or rebut any of the lines of evidence that I've provided in terms of independent origins, directly demonstrating the fact that, hey, listen, humans today were specially created just thousands of years ago. They're unrelated to any other form of life. Okay, how would you explain that then according to your worldview? Why is your worldview stronger than the biblical-based worldview, which actually predicted the data that suggests humans are not related to any other form of life in terms of biology? How do you explain that then? Because I think it's perfectly explained through a biblical starting point. That's what Genesis claimed. That's exactly what we expected. Turned out to be true. Did not have to be true. So how do you fit that in with your position? Because it sounds like you're saying you accept the evidence for a creator, but this creator is not personal. Well, what we see in terms of humans being specially created, made in the image of God, independent from all other forms of life, that would point us back to a personal God who made a choice to create, to make life. So how do you explain that into your worldview? Why is yours better than mine?
Yeah, so again, I would say that account is not valid by the principle of sufficient reason. There is no sufficient reason. And again, my specific account of the sufficient reason is, why is it such in no other way? So tell me why it would have to be such in no other way. Why can't that intelligent design argument be?
I'm going to stop you there because your audio is cutting out. Your audio is kind of
earlier. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your audio is kind of getting a little bit robotic there. It's been fine the entire time. It's been awesome, but right there, it completely roboted out for a minute. So maybe there's something you can fix.
Yeah, I think I'm lagging a little bit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. You've been good the whole time. You just kind of lagged there for a bit. Maybe if you wanted to repeat what you were saying, just so we can hear. I want the audience to hear your argument. If you shut off your webcam, you might save some bandwidth. So again, I'm not sure, but yeah, go ahead.
No worries. I would say that to respond to what you said, that account is not the thing that makes my argument better. It's valid by the principle of sufficient reason. Your account does not show why it is such and no other way. Why can't that intelligent design argument that you gave me just be what I was saying earlier, which is just a set of rules? And you can see how in the beginning this set of rules set in motion can create small structures that don't look like real life, and then after billions of years create something that is what we see today. The intelligent design argument only shows that this world follows a rational structure. It does not prove a Christian God. So
okay, so I would disagree with what you're saying, and maybe as I'm responding, your audio improved a little bit there, but I don't want to miss anything. So I would disagree with what you said. I believe it does point to the Christian God, the God of the Bible. Okay, the evidence suggests a personal God, and I don't feel like you've dealt with that. A God who is outside time, matter, and space. No position of deism, okay, would fit within the evidence that suggests that to be true. The unmoved mover argument is a deductive argument for God because it shows the cause. Okay, the uncaused first cause is what? Spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. The unmoved mover supports the principle of sufficient reason. And I have to go. I'm sorry. I got to point out. You still have not, for one, presented any religious text that even comes close. To the predictive power of the text in Genesis. Well, because yes, the account of origins in Genesis can only be true if Genesis is true. The Bible says holy men spake as they were moved by the Holy Ghost. Is this true? Let's test its claims. And you seem to be allergic to actually dealing with the evidence. Okay. It seems like you just want to be ignorant to the evidence that suggests, okay, we've all descended, we've all originated from two people, Adam and Eve, just as the Bible has claimed. Originally, it was God, a personal God who chose to create. That's a personal God. That really reduces the amount of religions that we can look to. That completely destroys deism. So what's your worldview? What are you holding to? I haven't seen you really address or answer anything. Go ahead, take your time.
Yeah, so you keep telling me I'm not addressing the empirical evidence, and that's because I keep trying to tell you that I'm not going to. It does not help your argument, because it is, again, I mean, we can go through this as many times as you want. Your argument is an inductive argument. You are using this observant analysis to make a prediction, either strong evidence or weak evidence. I can go through this as many times as you want.
Are you saying that my argument from the unmoved mover is not a deductive argument for God?
If you are using so what is your evidence for that? Is it physical observable evidence, or is it a logic? Are you understanding? Is it a logic and reason based? Is it based in ontology? Like, is it based in the physical world, and are you observing physical things and then saying, oh, that means a Christian God exists? Do you not see
my empiricism
in logic?
Yeah, sure. My empiricism is grounded in God as an epistemology, but I can also look to the physical evidence, and I can make testable predictions. What testable predictions does your worldview make? Do you have any position?
You can make testable predictions. You can make testable predictions that then become false. So again, you either have a strong argument or a weak argument, but you cannot claim any truth to what you're saying. Again, you're making an inductive argument.
I gotta stop you there. Stop. For one, improve your audio because the robotics is getting annoying, or at least shut off your webcam to save bandwidth. I am arguing that the evidence, okay, that we see in the real world, okay, that is also testable, has predictive power. Okay, that evidence demonstrates the validity and the truth of Genesis, which is specific to Christianity. And I also don't believe that your worldview, whether you hold to a deist worldview or a non-personal creator, it does not conform to the data. Okay, and I think at this point we are just going to be talking past each other. So for at least the audience sake, if you're not going to address any of it, I'm going to share screen for a second. And then you can ignore this evidence, and we're just going to go into equally timed responses here. So I'm going to say this, so at least the audience can get something out of it, okay? We've looked to the account in Genesis in regards to origins, okay, in regards to biblical creation. You're not rebutting anything in terms of abiogenesis or the evidence that suggests a designer, okay? So we can just agree then that the evidence does suggest some type of creation. The evidence also seems to suggest that this is a personal creator, okay? It sounds like your position may actually be more pantheistic, not deistic. You can correct me on that afterwards. But just based on the things I've written down from everything you're saying, you can't rebut the evidence, okay, that we actually have smack dab right in front of our faces, okay, that confirms the biblical starting point of Genesis, which no other religious text even comes close to confirming. Also confirms the fall as recorded in Genesis. This expected pattern based on these phylogenetic trees in terms of Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA confirms the special creation of Adam and Eve. You were talking about billions of years. Why couldn't God use billions of years? You don't have the billions of years because guess what? This is only a couple hundred generations worth of mutations. Mutation accumulation takes us back to a starting point just 6,000 years ago. How does your position deal with the evidence that suggests, oh no, the scientific data in terms of genetics, which is the direct way of determining ancestry and answering this question of ancestry, how do you deal with the low genetic diversity, the evidence for
I'm going to
one
step in here really
mitochondrial?
quick. I'm going to let Standing for Truth wrap it up. I'm going to give Boy his time to respond, and we're going to have time responses, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead and wrap up Standing. We'll then let Boy have his piece as well.
Okay, perfect. So, yes, how do you deal with how do you fit, because you don't want to deal with it. So how do you fit it in your model? How do you fit it in your worldview? Okay, this data that screams Genesis. Okay, and I understand you're not going to deal with genetic entropy. You're not going to deal with all the amazing lines of evidence in our genetics that points to a forward thinker. If he's a forward thinker, this God, then he's a personal God. Also, if your position is pantheism, then that lacks ontology because it cannot account for what? It cannot account for the lines of evidence that we've been talking about in terms of this personal God, this God who is immaterial, spaceless, timeless. So go ahead, take equal time.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, you are trying to make me analyze physical properties of something and then make a logical gap and say that it means a Christian God exists. You seem to not understand why I'm rejecting your empirical data. And again, I'll try to say this one more time, but the argument empiricists make is that is based on probability. You are using observable data to make your argument either weaker or stronger. It says nothing about the trueness or the falseness. It just says, I think this is true. I think this is strong evidence that this is true. That's all your argument says. The reason why my argument is better is because it's a deductive argument. It is implied in what's being said that my argument is better because it accounts for consciousness in a logical way that is supported by the principle of sufficient reason. Yeah. So again, I don't know how many times we're going to have to go through this step, but what you're not understanding is you cannot make a claim about the specificity of something if you cannot tell me if you're using physical empirical evidence that is based off a scale of probability. That's not how logic works. So yeah, I'll yield my time again.
Are you saying abductive evidence or abductive reasoning is not valid?
No, it's definitely not valid because again, like think of the there's like this famous experiment. It was like I think it's called like the white swan experiment, and it shows like the why inductive arguments are terrible arguments. These guys for years they thought there were only white swans existed because they've only seen white swans, and their argument was on a probability scale. It kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until one day, like years ago, they fucking found a fucking black swan, and oh my god, oh shit, that shit changed. So you cannot make a claim based on if you're using a probability model. But I can because I'm using a deductive model that proves specific things. So yeah, that's why hold on, excuse me. That's why ontological mathematics is the best argument because it's mathematics is pure logic. It can be written in pure logic. 1 + 1 will always equal 2, and in that same way, we have a mathematical way to express God that doesn't have any of the specific claims that Christians make. So we deductively prove God isn't Christian. You guys try to use inductive arguments to make a strong argument, but that doesn't say anything about the trueness of what you're saying. So I don't know if you understand that or not, but
no, I do.
okay.
Now, would you now based on everything you're saying, would you agree that the law of parsimony is then grounded in abductive evidence?
Inductive and what is the law of sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, what's the most parsimonious explanation?
What does the word
given
parsimonious
the
mean? I'm so sorry.
parsimonious would be, okay, we look at this data over here and we look at this data, and then we have two positions. Okay, what's the most parsimonious explanation for it?
Yeah.
Let's say the genetic data. What's the most parsimonious explanation?
That's like what plausible means, right? Like that's like it's like what's the most plausible, right? But like plausible isn't necessarily knowing. It's like a based on probability again, like I was saying. But deductive arguments, as I keep trying to explain, shout out deductive arguments. They prove things about what they're talking about. So this whole debate, you have not been able to make a deductive argument that shows that Christian God exists. You have made a couple deductive arguments that makes a general God necessary, and that again I gel with. But
Right. And here's where we go wrong is you agree with that, but then apparently the inference that I'm providing you in the fact that these lines of evidence and the inference that results from them, the best explanation is not just any God, not a deistic God, not a pantheistic God, but the creator God being that of the Bible. You, for one, still haven't met my criteria of providing
infer. You're inferring. You don't know that shit.
Right, but you didn't know what the law of parsimony is. And the most parsimonious explanation is biblical creation and the account in Genesis. You can't deal with the evidence, which is why you seem to be confused.
The most logical argument is the one that is a deductive argument and not an inductive argument. So that's wrong. The best argument is the one that is proving specific claims using deductive reasoning. The worst model is the one that is based on probability, because again, like I told you, based on the white swan thing that I was talking about, you can be proven wrong at any fucking moment. So you might as well not, like, it's just negligent to like try to make claims, based off of that.
Right. So
like I said, if you go back to my my metaphor about being in Afghanistan or whatever the fuck, like I don't know why the fuck I chose that, but yeah, like if you don't know how bombs work, you cannot tell me, oh, like that bomb's not gonna fucking kill you. Like you cannot. That's negligent. And what you guys do is pretty negligent to all of society.
Now, here's the thing, though. Deductive reasoning without God has flawed epistemology. And what I've seen from your position and your worldview is to just wave away all the lines of evidence that suggest that this creator God, which you don't seem to be arguing against, okay, actually is the God of the Bible, the God spoken of in Genesis that makes some very specific claims of human origins. Now, here's the thing. You can take a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. So I can't force you to drink.
You just have to make a deductive argument. That's all you have to do. That proves a Christian God exists. That's all you have to do. But your position can't do it.
I feel like you're straw manning me because yes, you can disagree that the inference being the best explanation is incorrect. Okay, tell me, what is your epistemology then?
What an inference means. You're guessing, dude.
What's the most parsimonious? Okay, let me ask you this, boy. I got two questions. What is your epistemology? One, and two, what's the most parsimonious explanation for the number of lines of evidence from empirical science that I've provided? Answer those two questions.
Could you reiterate that? I'm sorry.
So for one, what is your epistemology?
That's like my stance on where we came from. Say what does that mean? I'm sorry.
Yeah, stance on existence, where we came from, your worldview, what it's what's the foundation of it, for example.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, again, the foundation of my worldview is based in mathematics, because I believe that everything is ultimately mined in math. I believe everything is like the quantum waves that I was talking about and the frequency pattern in which it expresses itself. So yeah.
Is that how you know something? Because I mean, the best way to define epistemology is how do you know something? So how do you know something in terms of the existence?
I know it because it's deductive deductively necessary. Like it's deductively true. Like 1 + 1 = 2 no matter what. So like in that way, that's how I understand certain things about ontology, is through what's called ontological mathematics.
Now, with your position using, it seems like you've got this circular position where you want to hold to the fact that yes, the evidence suggests a God. Now, is the God or the creator that you would hold to? Is this deism, pantheism? What is this? Is this a personal God, impersonal God?
It would be like you can like visualize it as like a collective consciousness. Like if I would like give like the most dumbed down like version of what I believe is that, like, you know, when we dream, we create a space-time domain that is out, you know, has space-time, but it's not like outside of our dimension. It's not like outside of our mind or whatever. It's like this like illusion that's being projected or whatever. So in
How
that
would you
same way,
how would you falsify your position?
you again, so that goes back to what I was talking about the principle of sufficient reason. Like the math, like is all valid by the principle of sufficient reason, meaning there's no way in which there's no other way in which it could be. It explores all of the possibilities, and it's the most it's necessary, I guess, is what I would say.
Okay. So I would say that my position is actually falsifiable. It can be falsified. Okay. The evidence does seem to suggest that this God, this creator, this designer is personal. Okay. He had to choose to create. And I understand that
Evidence, which is again an inductive argument. So it's like
right. But here's the thing. I'm not convinced by your form of argumentation, your line of reasoning. I understand where you're coming from through, this cross-examination. What I'll say now is at this point, why don't you sum up your position? Let's turn this into a 5-minute uninterrupted conclusion. Okay, since we're going on the 45-minute discussion, we'll take some audience questions. And this may result in a couple after shows that we can join and discuss this further. So this has been fun. So sum up your thoughts, sum up your arguments. I'll mute myself. Take 5 minutes. Take the whole 5 minutes, and then I'll do the same.
Yeah. I don't know how to close here. Hyperian, and we champion logic and reason above all else. This ontological mathematics that I keep talking about is the most logical way to understand the nature of where we came from. And all of the math shows that we are a collective consciousness, and that we are eternal, we're uncaused. It's all valid by the principle of sufficient reason, which is logic itself. If you reject the principle of sufficient reason that I keep talking about, then you reject any type of reason or logic. And I would just say that yeah, I don't know. Again, I keep trying to explain the inductive versus deductive thing. My opponent, I guess, is not understanding the validity of what makes my argument better. I guess he doesn't understand the structure of logic. And I guess that's what I would say. If he keeps posturing to empirical evidence, he's just going to further confuse humans, as the logical way to understand things is through ontological mathematics. He is giving a very distorted version of existence, and yeah, I would say proof beats like probability. So yeah.
Are you sure? You're free to take as much time as you need.
Yeah. Oh, okay. True. I would also say, like, if you want to learn more about ontological mathematics, this book is like on Amazon. It's like $20, which is not that much money, but it's like the science of the future, and it explains everything like like this stuff like takes like a bit to like understand, and you have to have like a trigonometry level understanding of math to like kind of understand it, and then the philosophy behind it is like you have to like get rid of empirical data, which again my opponent can't do, which is hard, which I understand. So this is ontological mathematics. It proves that we're eternal minds in a collective dream. Cool. That's it. I don't have anything else to say. I can't think of anything.
All right, SFT, it is your floor. When you want to finish up here, we'll take questions.
All right, Praise. You know I could talk forever, so I've got a lot of notes based on everything he said, so I am going to just talk for 5 minutes straight. Give me a 1 minute warning, and we'll go from there. So start it now, Praise. So
gotcha.
I want to point out first, it's abductive, not inductive. I've said this
no,
numerous
inductive.
times.
What are you talking about? No. What are you talking about?
Well, boy, real quick, uninterrupted. So now my opponent's epistemology is circular. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. I see no defense of naturalism, to be honest with you. And if my opponent cannot falsify his position, okay, his position cannot be falsified, and therefore it can be dismissed, and I am dismissing it. He has a dismissed position, and he can't deal with the evidence, so he's resorting to games. The ontological argument for God best explains all ontology rather than pantheism, deism, okay? And math is prescriptive, which shows math is actually better explained with God. So I feel like Boy demonstrated my position today. His position is actually viciously circular, and based in ignorance. So what I'll do for my last couple minutes here, because that addressed the points that I had written down, is the fact that he even agreed that the evidence suggests a designer. He didn't rebut my points in terms of DNA being a code. He must acknowledge that. Okay, this designer, given the evidence for design that he seems to accept, at least he's not rebutting, points back to a forward thinker, which has to be a personal God who chose to create, who chose to bring time, space, and matter into existence. This has to be the God of the Bible. It can only be the God of the Bible. I've asked him 3 or 4 times, show me one other religious text that is so amazingly and beautifully corroborated through science and what the text says in terms of origins, okay? Everything that we see in the scientific realm points to that creator, which he seems to admit to, but now he wants to remain ignorant on the evidence-based arguments. I am an evidentialist. This is how I believed in the Christian God, was all of these numbers of amazing, overwhelming lines of evidence suggesting independent origins through secular papers. Okay, there's no amount of naturalism that can be invoked to explain the highly complex functional DNA sequences and DNA elements found in our genetics, which require forward thinking, which points to a forward thinker. But not only that, the evidence, okay, in terms of genetics and ancestry, points to the most parsimonious explanation in light of all the data as to being the God of the Bible. Okay, maybe in a future interaction or discussion, he can point me to another. He can point me to another religious text that's just so amazingly consistent. Okay, I mean, did all this have to be true? Y chromosome, uniparentally inherited DNA. The pattern fits exactly what we'd expect based on the biblical starting point. Mitochondrial DNA, same thing. The number of DNA differences, okay, the mutation rate itself, all of these things. Our position of design diversity is falsifiable. We've made very specific predictions on what? DNA function, okay? These predictions can be falsified. Predictions on speciation. He pointed to billions of years a few times. Okay, no, you don't have billions of years to work with for a number of reasons that we can get into from biology, from genetics. okay, from astronomy, from geology. Hey, you don't have billions of years. The deist position, the pantheist position, is completely demolished in light of everything we've been talking about. Now, here's the thing: if he wants to hold to a circular position based on ignorance, with no real epistemology, and the biggest reason why I wouldn't hold to that position is I pretty much have to just ignore all of the amazing evidence coming from these multiple fields of science. And I like that he didn't rebut any of my opening in terms of naturalism and naturalistic origins being absolutely dismantled based on the scientific data. Abiogenesis has absolutely no evidence. Okay, every single hypothesis, including the RNA world, is worse than each other. They all argue against each other. So who is that God? Okay, I chose the title as being biblical creation because the evidence is strong. The evidence is strong for biblical creation. This is the last thing I'll show. And a lot of people say, you know, these creationists, these young earth creationists, they want to hang out in abiogenesis, or they want to hang out in terms of ancestry, you know, as far as you can go on the tree of life. No, I'll go as closest to home. Genesis says God made us in his image. Therefore, we would expect evidence suggesting that we were specially created apart from all of the biological world. And that just so turned out to be true. And the secularists themselves are finding a lot of this data, suggesting that humans and chimpanzees, the genetic differences are far too great to be explained through universal common ancestry. Okay, predictions. This is the last thing I'll say. Testable predictions. Okay, here's a paper here coming out from young earth creationists that can be falsified. Okay, a lot of predictions have already come true. He has a position that's unfalsifiable. So I'm going to go right back to this. Therefore, his position can be dismissed, and I will happily dismiss it, as he has dismissed all the lines of evidence that destroys his position. So I'm guessing that's coming to about 5 minutes. So yeah, let's call it there.
5:12. Yeah, great stuff, guys. We have several questions and even a super chat. So
what a super chat!
There we go. I'm gonna retire early with that super chat.
Yeah, our buddy George Bond, $10. Thank you, brother George. And he said, "Hey, I missed 36 minutes. Sorry, I was at the gym trying to beat your biceps."
George, you're getting there, brother. I've seen those biceps. I would have. I'm just glad that George is on my side.
And now we're to the questions. That was our only super chat, as far as I'm aware of. I might have missed one earlier. But the question is from "And through whom we have redemption through his blood." He says, and question for Boy: do you believe directed panspermia is a possible explanation for the origin of life?
I don't know what the fuck that is.
Panspermia is where something floats in space and it eventually comes to the Earth, and that's where life spawned from.
Do I believe that? What?
So do you believe that's a possible explanation, that there was something floating through space and it landed on like a rock, and then life spawned off of that?
Yeah, that could be possible.
Okay. Let's see here. The next one is from Gavin Hurlman. Question for both: which comes first, mind or matter, and why?
Is that for both, you said?
Yeah, so SFT and you, yeah.
Yeah, I would say mind comes first, because if matter comes first, then we're just like these like robots or whatever. And also, it's proven that mind makes matter because of quantum physics that shows us through the double slit experiment. It shows us that everything is ultimately wave, and like I was trying to say earlier, these are the building blocks of everything, which is these waves are mind, and they express themselves in a mathematical frequency. So yeah, I would say
Go ahead, SFT. Want to address that?
Sure, I guess I would say, I mean, I'm no expert on these types of questions, but since the laws of logic are grounded where? Well, in God's mind, that means those laws of logic have to be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial. They're also prescriptive. So I'd have to say that mind comes first. And through God's mind comes matter, time, space, and matter. So that's my answer.
Great answer. Even Boy put his thumb up on that one. Good stuff. This is from Godzilla Freak.
Godzilla Freak in the house. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you both agree on something. That's awesome. But here's a question for Boy. Is there a deductive argument you can use which disproves the existence of the Christian God? If not, you would have to move towards inductive arguments.
Yeah, so that's my whole that I guess he didn't understand my whole the whole thing I was trying to say, but this ontological mathematics has what's called the source formula. I'll share it again if you guys want, so you guys understand this stuff. But okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint. We have this source formula. It's right here. It's called Euler's formula, but Hyperions call it the source formula because it explains like where we came from. But yeah, this is a deductive argument. It's pure logic. It's implied in everything in this equation, and it's all also valid by what's called the principle of sufficient reason, meaning everything in the equation is such, and it could not be any other way because it's expressed in the way that's the most logical, I guess is what I would say. So it's like everything is necessary. And so this equation, like I said, has specific qualities that meet the intelligent design argument. It's eternal, it's uncaused, it's uncreated, but it's not per se an intelligent thing. It's just internal, uncaused, and uncreated. So yeah, I would say, yeah.
Thanks for I appreciate that answer. SOT, if you want, you can also respond to that.
No, that's fine. If you want to get to the last couple questions, we can start wrapping this up. And if someone wants an after show, they can let us know. And maybe you'll have an after show and we can go into this.
Or LPP. Yo, LPP, where you at? You better do a freaking after show. So this one's from Hate Love Nothing to That Boy. Do you So there's two questions. It's a two-parted question. The first question is, are you okay? And the second part is, do you think you are an individual person?
No, I think this your sense of self is an illusion. I think you're just comprised of like a bunch of different data. And so yeah, what was the end of the question there?
Yeah, do you think you are an individual person?
Yeah, so I would say that we're a collective consciousness. So I think that every person's, like I was trying to explain here, I'll try and share my screen again. This Fourier transform is like how we get like our physical universe. So I would say it's like an illusion, right? It's just a different way of looking at a dimensionless being. And so like when we dream, Fourier transfers are happening and creating a world that has a space-time, and then us together, we create what we know today as the world we exist in right now together. So yeah, I would say we're all made of the same thing, and yeah, your sense of self is like a projection.
Gotcha. I appreciate that answer. Here's the last one. This is for USFT from Andrew Cumming. Is nuclear physics and particle physics based on operational or historical science, and why?
Is quantum, say that again, is it based on operational science, as in testable, repeatable? Is it?
Yeah. Is nuclear physics and particle physics based on operational or historical science, and why?
Tough question. I would say, is it based on operational? I think yes, maybe some of the inferences would not necessarily be, depending on some of the underlying assumptions going into those fields of science. So I don't know. I'll have to look into that one specifically.
Well, that sums it up. I appreciate the chat, all their questions and super chats from George. And if we miss a question, I'm sorry, or even a super chat, because the thing goes down so freaking fast. I mean, it was 50 people plus tonight. I mean,
yeah, we had a good show, boy. Hey, boy, you bring in the numbers. So that's.
I'm in my fucking onesie.
Well, there you go. Now you can sleep well. And I'm sorry, Praise, for interrupting. Praise, thanks for moderating it and keeping us behaving well, and also making sure that we're not going over time and stuff. So I appreciate it, Praise.
I tried. Oh wait, there's a last one to my question tag for SFT, not you. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find Bob's question really quick. We're gonna try to salvage it. We need to salvage his question.
Let's see who finds it first. Bob.
Freaking Bob. No, I'm just kidding. I love Bob. He's a cool dude.
Bob for the win. I don't see any I don't see any questions from Bob. Well, okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll call it here. It was nice that we kept it straight to the format. We're just over the hour and a half mark. So good questions from the audience. Thanks for doing this. Boy, it was an interesting position to discuss and debate. Hey, my pleasure. So, wait, hey, we'll get you some more debates in the future, especially this specific topic. I'm sure Praise would love to debate you on. So,
oh man, yeah, I love that. I have to say something really quick though. I'm going to have an after show on my channel, so I'll be holding an after show tonight.
All righty, awesome. Well, anyways, guys, last thing I'll say is today is what? Sunday. So Tuesday we've got Snake Was Right versus Matt Slick. So make sure you're here for that debate on morality. I am pumped for that one. And Thursday we're having Mike Ord here, meteorologist. We're going to be discussing the flood. So yeah, we're gonna call it. We'll see at Praise's after show. And here's Bob's question. To be fair, boy, you might want to answer it, I guess. So here's the question that we missed. What is the difference, boy, between inductive and deductive reasoning? What do you believe is more reliable? And then we'll end it with that.
Yeah, I would say they're two different things. I guess if you want to find out about absolute truths, and this just goes into logic if you ever take a logic course. If you want to know the truth about something, you use a deductive argument because it proves the conclusions if the premises are sound. Or inductive arguments try to make a strong argument and is on like a probability scale and is usually used to make inferences about physical things. So I guess classical physics would be like under that. Yeah, you can figure out things about classical physics through inductive reasoning, and that's all fine. But if you want to figure out things about the nature of existence that are true, absolutely and necessary, then you want to use a deductive argument, which again, my standing for truth cannot do. He can't make one that shows a Christian God. So,
but I can show. But it seemed like at one point, a couple times, you did agree that I showed one for God, at least.
Yeah, that's what I kept saying that too. Is you guys you do show one for God, but to prove me wrong, you would have to make a deductive argument that shows that a Christian God exists.
Right. So for me, using
You can even do that mathematically, like you can do that in an ontologically mathematical way, like and
right
that
for
would be the
me,
best way to do it as
right.
well.
And I feel like when it comes to the Christian God, obviously you're putting the burden of proof on me. But for me, obviously we would both disagree with. You're going to disagree
It
with what
has
I
to
say.
be, the burden
Well,
of proof has to
real
be
quick,
on
boy,
I
real
have
quick, because I'm losing my train of thought.
Sorry.
Obviously, you're going to disagree with what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
But I think it's just through weak-minded logic and arguments, to be honest with you. Because yes, you agreed that I provided a deductive argument for God, and then I used evidence-based arguments to show why that
Evidence-based
God has
arguments
to be the Christian God. You disagree with me, but that
Evidence-based
is what
arguments don't
real
say
quick, boy,
anything about the trueness of something.
right
Like
to
I just
you, right
explained.
to you.
Okay, by
Yes,
logic
to
though.
you. You want to
By
reject it.
logic. By logic.
No, no, no.
By the
You
All
are
right,
very
hold
rejecting
on.
the
Let
scientific
SFT
evidence.
finish. We'll let SFT finish. Let Boy, and then you can finish after. Go ahead, SFT, and go ahead and finish.
So, for one, I'm still slightly confused because the debate was naturalistic origins. So it sounds like you're anti-naturalistic origins if you agree that the origins has to be some type of outside force.
I don't. I've never conceded that at all. I've just said, yeah, again, you keep strawmanning my position. I meant to say this earlier. You keep strawmanning my position when you kept saying that I concede to an intelligent designer. I never did that. What and it's specifically in the debate I said that the only thing that the intelligent design argument shows is that something internal and uncaused needs to exist. And
Right. But,
my mathematical wave existence fits the.
I'm just going to mute you because you keep going on these rants. So what I'll say is yes, but you were incapable of refuting any of the lines of evidence that suggest that this is an intelligent designer. So you essentially did concede it, even though you just want to go back to your circular-based reasoning, circular-based argument. That's okay. I don't think your position is really convincing. It's not convincing to me, that's for certain. I would not want to argue from that position. So since you're a guest here, just don't make it a rant. Say 10 words and we'll end it here because I like to give my guests the last word. But I will say your position is kind of frustrating because I feel like it's such a weak position that it has to resort in what? It has to resort in denial of all the evidence. I mean, all I can do is laugh. So you go ahead. Have the last word.
Yeah, like I would say that it's like I don't know how you see it as a weak argument. As again, you are making an inductive argument, which is based on probability, and I'm using a deductive argument, which is proves conclusions. So how you don't understand that, I don't know. I've said it like a shit ton of times. I guess we'll leave it at that, and I can maybe try to explain it to somebody else later. But yeah. Cool.
Well, and I'll say this, boy, since you're throwing insults, you should go back and rewatch my opening.
I didn't throw an insult. I just said I don't know how you don't understand.
No. Listen, you're being condescending. When you go back and rewatch, you said you've watched all our debates. When you understand even 0.1% of my arguments and the science-based lines of evidence that suggest biblical creation, then we can have more of an evidence-based. But I understand why you'd have to hold to your position because you don't understand or you can't refute all the evidence-based arguments. So, that's the last thing I'll say. So I'm not going to let you have the last word since it's condescending. So anyways, guys, SFT is out. I hope you guys had fun. This has been a wild ride, and we'll talk to you guys later. God bless.